What's up, guys? Life22 here. Just catching on the pop fly. We normally, it's been a while since we've done one of these crisscross applesauce, and we got her going up. So I want to introduce my guest, Paul, the good husband. I don't think Paul, you've been on the channel twice.
Nope,
been on the panel twice, yeah, huh? You were on the channel for the funeral of Sarah, the dog, and
for the book reading of
Die Hard Christmas. Your kids, you were off camera, but your kids were there. So
right.
yeah. Which to anybody out there in TV land, we have the full consent of the parents of those children that were in the video, and the video was not made for children. It was
book-friendly family. So
yes,
anything is good.
Today's sponsor is Allegheny Redemption Center, the best place to buy beers in town. They don't know they're today's sponsor, but they are. At $2.99 a 12-pack, folks. I know it's grapefruit. I know grapefruit's gross, and it's got that shitty, like, rind aftertaste. It's always had that. It's yucky. But this beer isn't so bad. And for $2.99 for a 12-pack, you can't go wrong. And I believe for $12.99, you can get a case of the Blue Light Lime in pounders instead of bottles. So you got a 12-pack of bottles for $2.99, or you've got 24 16-ounce pounders in the aluminum cans for $12.99. So I mean, I bet they're about the same price. I bet this is the better deal, but I mean, it's grapefruit versus lime. So I mean, and nobody really likes light beer, but I mean, if you like light beer or you're a bargain shopper like myself,
it's surprisingly not that bad. You would think that it would be really, really bitey, like a regular grapefruit, but it's not too bad.
Yeah, see? Look at it. Paul the good husband here, promoting our sponsor. So Allegheny Redemption, tell him Kevin sent you, and then don't forget to say hi to Tony. All right, there we go. We got our sponsors out of the way. Yeah, so this is the first of hopefully many topics where we talk about the local politics, right? We want to talk about the local stuff. So that we're new to this, so I want to tell. Well, I'm not new to this, but we're new to this style, this portion of the channel, the political review section, which we're going to create a new playlist for, so that people can find it. So the channel is like a TV channel, right? You go on your TV channel, you look for a show, right? Like your show's on at 7, boom. We're trying to make this more weekly. And we're trying to make this a show that's on the channel. So, right, Kevin's rants are a show, and those are kind of like intermittent, like when the new episode comes out, we put it up, right? Where the Common Council meetings, boom, that's a show on the channel, and you can watch it every week. Typically the same time, and it all depends on rendering speeds. So, like, last week's meeting was like 2 hours. Which was like 37 gigs for the 360 renderings. So I've got to every 10 minutes it makes a separate video chunk. So I have to consolidate all those together, and that rendering took over 27 hours. Sure. Versus like the minute and a half meeting that literally was in one chunk. Right. So I could just upload that immediately. That was up in like 5 seconds.
Because your typical meetings usually half an hour. I mean,
half hour. Yeah, depending. But then like budget season comes, and we've had 3-hour meetings before, where I've busted the card on the thing because it just gives up. That's why I've got a backup battery pack on that thing too. So you'll see that in the cameras if you scroll down. Nobody ever watches down, but if you look down, there's a Mophie attached to that. So we want to start. So that's a show, and typically that comes out around the same time. You'll see that, anywhere from Wednesday morning to like Thursday evening, that block, you'll see the episode is up. It gives you all weekend to watch it, and then hopefully me and Paulie can find a more solid time to do this. This is Saturday night. Saturday nights are not always the same for every week, and I want to try to pick a time with Paul here that works better in our schedule. So we're going to eventually equalize and create a time that works for both of us. And maybe have guests on the show and things like that if it meets our, you know what I mean? So sometimes the show might be at a different time if we have a guest on, but I just wanted to make sure, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to fill everybody in on what we're trying to do here.
Sure.
So,
yeah, I guess, when we originally came up with this idea, it was kind of to summarize what you were talked about, especially during the council meeting. Sometimes they can get kind of wordy, and sometimes, the lay people like me that don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes. Sometimes you're just bringing up some kind of new proposal or new amendment to,
and it's never
some kind of ordinance or anything, and I'm like, what are you talking about on your video? I think this is a great way to kind of fill you in and say, here's what we reviewed.
It's like an Ask a Layman, right?
The 12th of December. So I think I think it will work out well, and it's
right.
a great way for people to respond back to you on the channel, and we can maybe hopefully alleviate some of the questions that people have.
Which actually is probably a good idea that I pull this out, huh?
So we could actually probably go over both of them, right?
Yeah, because I didn't watch the long meeting, but I did catch the short meeting. Was anything?
No. We could go over everything from the first of the year and cover everything, which is actually perfect because this is the first one of these, and we're covering everything for 2020.
Sure.
Right. So let's talk about those, and then we talked about like some filler stuff if we don't, if we run out of time or whatever. I don't want to drag these on for more than an hour.
Sure.
You know what I mean? We could be 15 minutes, we could be a half an hour, but I try not to drag them on for an hour because if you're not going to watch an hour-long council meeting, you're not going to watch an hour-long play-by-play. But this is a realm that I'm in. When you go to, when you watch, I don't watch sports like that, right? Like, listen, if I catch a football game, I catch a football game, but I don't really care the play-by-play. Well, yeah, Marcus's wife was yelling at him behind the scenes, and I think that's why he had a bad game today. Nobody cares. I don't care. But I care about local politics, and I'm the guy that could tell you, listen, and because I'm also there on the field too, so I'm a player and a sportscaster, right? I'm the guy that's in both. So, you know what I mean? Well, if you watch that meeting, man, you should have seen it. I was getting daggers from this person, or this person put this piece of legislation forward. I can give you the play-by-play on what it all means. Listen, you see this person staring right at the camera when they're giving a speech? They're not talking to the people in the room. They're talking to the viewer. Because it's soapbox standing. You know what I mean? I can tell, I can point all these different things out. My brain is picking up on all that all the time because it's politics. It's just as complicated as guys showing up at a sports game to play the game. And they got other shit going on. Jeff's got a divorce going on and he had an off night. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's really what it is. So, do you want to start with the annual meeting?
It's up to you.
Yeah, let's.
Well, congratulations on getting reelected.
Thanks. 45% of the vote, by the way. If you guys didn't catch that from my shower video.
So I guess the first meeting is pretty much just covering all your.
And then we're gonna fly through this stuff. Because the first one, we do a roll call officers. I just got the agendas in front of me. So the roll call officers councilmen, and then you got the invocation, and then you got the pledge, and then you get your unofficial council or unfinished council business, which is the oath of office, which is where ceremonially, right? This isn't a requirement. I.e., Nate Smith wasn't there; he was out of town. So the oath of office, typically you swear and sign a book. But for ceremonial purposes, which is not a requirement, the standing judge of the city of Olean will swear in everybody. Everybody puts their hand on a Bible. I swear you in. Repeat after me. Blah blah blah. We all repeat after him. Yada yada. Just pretty boilerplate stuff, right? The election of the council president. And this is where this meeting actually got dicey.
Really?
Yeah, because and this is where we're gonna get behind the scenes stuff too. Because all right, so listen, there's been a fission, right? There's been a division in the council now, right? With the election of a few new councilmen, some divisions from the past campaign. Everybody knows John Crawford was running for county legislator.
Yeah.
And, I like Johnny. Johnny's a nice guy. But, it's just like anybody else, man. It was everybody, your brain goes to this place. What... And it's not everybody, right? Not everybody goes this place, but a lot of people revert to what they think should be, right? When you're in when you're at a school, your brain just reverts to I'm in a no swear zone. You don't even have to think about it. It's second nature, right? You're just I'm in a no swear zone. But with this. Sorry, I'm hearing the kids laughing and stuff. It's just throwing me off a little bit. But with Johnny, he did what everyone normally would think. Like, you go into this place where you don't want to do no wrong, you want to kiss more babies and just kind of self-promote, right? And to a certain extent, that's acceptable, but it got a bit much, right? And like a lot, and then there's two sides of the spectrum in Olean, though. Like, you know what I mean? You got I hate the fact that it's party lines like this, but you've got the Democrats and the Republicans. And the Democrats are headed by Linda Witt, and the Republicans used to be headed by Bill Aleo, but he's still the mayor, right? So like, you have that split. He's still there, and Bill and Linda are like Popeye and Bluto, like forever to be in a death grip of one another's throats. You know what I mean? Like, it's this. Unless one of them leaves, like it's going to be like this forever. It's always tension and struggle and all this other stuff. Well, Johnny couldn't get on the Republican ticket. They had a group of people that were that they had already selected, and John was turned off by this, and he switched parties and went from independents to the Democrats, and then he essentially got into bed with Linda. And a lot of the Republicans, a lot of people that don't like Linda, you know, kind of saw that. In addition to, like, my critique on John was always just like, hey man, you're letting the game get to you, right? Like, always be yourself. That's my number one motto. Like, I'm not going to vote party lines if I have to be myself. You know what I mean? But I will vote party lines if it's being myself, right? So that's, so John was going to run, and I think he clearly knew he didn't have the votes. And a couple days before the meeting, he posted that he wasn't going to be on, he wasn't gonna do it. He was gonna focus on his family and things like that. He was gonna step down from the role, and he knew Paul Gonzalez is running, and he knew he was gonna lose to Paul. And I think that the same votes for Paul were clearly anti-Linda, or, you know what I mean. Anybody who was gonna vote for Paul was not gonna vote for him, and if we weren't gonna vote for him, we clearly weren't gonna vote for Linda. And it was one of those, like, I thought he was, when he made that post, I thought he was going to take the better road. Like, I thought he was just going to, like, he gave me eye contact during the meeting. Like, you can see that in the 360. Like, when it came time to make a nomination, like, I legitimately gave him some time because I thought he was going to be the, you know, like, bow out gracefully, and I'm just going to support, you know, I make the nomination for Paul. Like, you know what I mean? I thought he was going to do that, and instead he just kind of looked at me blankly, and I was like, all right, well, I nominate Paul. You know, Jason Panis seconded my nomination, and then, you know, and then John spoke and nominated Linda, which was like, whoa, like, that's not the graceful bow out. That's not nominating yourself. That's going with, like, the complete opposite, right? Like, if you're looking at a Bill to Linda scale, and it's just kind of throwing us all off, even though, like, you clearly know that you're not going to have the votes for Linda,
right?
But it was a stalemate.
So was it like
because Nate Smith wasn't there.
So was it like a protest kind of vote, or he just wanted to delay it until
I don't know.
Smith could come back?
Either way, Linda and Nate have had beef since way back when, you know what I mean? Like, when she was, I think she was mayor, and there was like a firefighter union issue or something like that, I believe. And you know, they've always just kind of been like, you know, riding those party lines as they go through, you know, history together, because they're just like, I'm on this side, you're on that side. Sure. You know what I mean? So clearly Nate's not going to vote for Linda. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was one of those things, like, clearly everybody knew that it was going to be a 50-50 split if somebody didn't falter from those other sides, and then Nate comes back and is going to sway it all towards Paul anyway. So it was just kind of a weird one, right? And then so that meeting got delayed for that reason, and it was, you know, it is what it is. So moving down the, I mean, do you have anything else to do? You want to give me some thoughts, Paulie? What do you?
I mean, you know, because obviously we, you know, don't see that in the video. We don't see the behind the scenes of, you know, as you were assuming that, you know, everybody was kind of on board. You know, Paul's been council president before, so I guess it was just kind of assumed that, you know, it'd be an easy transition from John to Paul, and you know, so I mean, as you were saying, it seems like everybody was pretty much on board with it, and all of a sudden, he, you know, it almost seems like at last minute he just changed his mind on it. I mean, that's pretty much what you're kind of thinking, or
I don't know.
Kind of
I
planned,
think,
or
as I sit back on it, I think it was planned. I think it was very planned. I don't believe anybody, like, you know what I mean, like, they don't make these. You want to tap on that glass for me, buddy?
We love kids.
They're not going to listen to this. Shush. No. See? Should have whipped a beer bottle out of it. So,
I guess what I'm wondering. Yeah, I'm good. Okay. I guess what I'm wondering is, how's it helping the city moving into the new year? You know, they all seem to be,
it isn't.
What's looking for the best for the city, but if all of a sudden I'm automatically starting 2020 with a little bit of division, a little bit of hard feelings about,
some extreme divisions, man. That's it's. Quinn and Lachlan, you guys need to stop right now. You want to go to bed? Jesus, I'm going to send my kids to bed right in the middle of a video. Ugh.
So it's unfortunate. I mean, it should have just been an easy, agreed upon thing. Obviously, they knew they didn't have the votes, but if they want to, it's their right, obviously, to nominate someone, and she's, qualified.
No, it is, and it is.
She's definitely qualified. It's just
I
just thought it was, be something easy that you guys could start off the year with and just move forward.
The last 3 years, we have not had an issue. Like the council completely got along. I want to say up until Linda got back on the council, and then it was kind of like a, 1 or 2 votes against 5 or 6. And so that really, I want to say that was like the council got along great. We were doing good things. We continued to do good things, but I felt like it was becoming more and more divided. And then this whole race happened, which was like setting off a nuclear bomb in the middle of the council, like our dynamic, everything, like, and you know what I mean, like. Just after an election, man, you know what I mean? You just lost a bunch of people, you got a bunch of new people in. Instead of transitioning everybody and like, hey guys, we're a team, you transition everybody into a, hey, pick a side. Like that's really what it came down to. Texting Miley the enforcer. Sorry.
That's fine.
So
I mean, moving forward, what's the next thing on your guys' calendar? I mean, I know you're usually obviously just getting into the new year, but didn't know if you guys had a agenda that you're having to jump right into, or
we're gonna be preparing for the budget.
Okay.
That's gonna be coming up in like late March, early April. That's gonna be coming up in early March, late March, early April, and then we end up having, you know what I mean? There's some legislation that I'm proposing. There's legislation other people are proposing. Sometimes we take things as they come. Constituent complains about something that's happening. We address it. Things like that. That stuff is always coming up. But then there's like, you know what I mean? Like pie in the sky ideas. And then it's another election year. Because guess what? Thanks to El Cuomo, we've got elections all start at the end of February, like early March. And they have you have to get your you have to get your letters in to all the different parties, and then you have to start getting all the meetings in to you have to start passing petitions, man. You start passing petitions, and you have to be in by like the 15th of April
for all offices.
For most, yeah, almost all.
That are planning on campaigning in November.
Yeah. You have to get approved to be on the ballot, and all those ballot opinions come in then, and that's why then you have your primary. What is it? July now. Yeah, primaries used to be like September.
Right. Yeah, they bumped it down.
And they bumped them to July, and then you've got November. You know what I mean? So like everything's just haywire. You know what I mean? You've got an entire year of election season now. Right. And it's not like you're missing any elections. Like, you got some major elections, but for the alderman races, it's every other year. Right. So now all of a sudden, a group of new people take office. We don't even have any time before we listen to the campaign start all over again. Like, I used to love it when you didn't even pass petitions till, like, June. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you got 6 months out of the year before you don't have to deal with any elections. You know what I mean? And most of the time, people were unopposed, so it wasn't even that big of a deal at a local level. But now, you got Linda running this year, you got Paul running this year, you got John running this year, and next year is going to be a mayoral race. So it's going to be like, it's just going to be watching all those three fight for their seats again. And it's That as well. An election season always delays the council from getting stuff done. Either you push through a lot of stuff that's just like vote getting, like smoking in the parks. I've had more people stop me saying, "Why the hell are you regulating my park?" than anything else. It's funny.
Sure.
That's the funny part, because you get a couple people stop you like, "Oh yeah, thanks for not letting them smoke near my kids at the park," and you get a whole bunch of people like, "Listen, man, for a city that's like 60% smokers, to not have smoking in the park is kind of ridiculous. Secondly, like most of us are all decent smokers, you know what I mean? Like we're decent human beings. We're not smoking around kids and stuff."
Sure.
And then I talked to 4 doctors after getting all these complaints. And you know what the doctors say? Give me one case that there's actual definitive proof that secondhand smoke causes cancer. 4 doctors.
No.
4, yeah. And like those are the ones I talked to. I didn't talk to any of the others. You know what I mean? Like, but they're just like, yeah, there's not one documented case of it actually legitimately causing cancer. It could be construed. It's a theory, like, but there's nothing that shows definitively. You know what I mean? Like, one of my questions to those doctors is like, definitively, do you know that exhaust fumes cause cancer? They're like, no, but we know that the toxins in them are 13,000 times worse than a cigarette.
Right.
So it would be held true if you have to be 50 feet away from a cigarette, from a child with a cigarette, then you should have to be like the entrance to the bus should be 50 feet away from the bag. You know what I mean? Like the exhaust pipe of the bus should be 50 feet like radial away from the entrance to the bus where the children are. Like and that would be any vehicle. So like technically you would have all these stretch limos driving around 50 feet long. They wouldn't be able to make turns.
Sure. So that law is in effect now?
It is in effect now.
What happens if, I don't know, you get a repeat offender, say the 3rd time, same guy,
There's
same
no
part.
repeat. There is just you get a fine for smoking in the parks, and the police can be lenient on it. You know what I mean? Like, hey man, put that out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're assuming that the general public is going to be, but the way we're going nowadays, the general public does not step up and say anything to people.
Sure.
They don't, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're just like, that guy's a jerk, as they whisper over their shoulders, and then one of them, like, pocket dials the police like they're in a bank robbery, and then the police have to be the assholes. You know what I mean? Like, that's what adults are for. Hey, man, my kids are here, can you not smoke? Oh, man, I didn't even think about it. Like, 9 out of 10 people are going to do that. Like, sorry, man, I just wasn't even thinking about it, man. I was at a sports game and just let up this smoke. You know what I mean? Instead of being like...
Or, hey, can you just, go to the next bench? Or
Yeah. Hey, can you go just sit, like, 2 blocks over or just take a walk with that smoke? You know what I mean? Like, listen, like... And I get it. I get parents' concerns. I'm a parent. But,
Sure.
like...
And I get the litter, if people are,
But the people that are gonna be jerks are the same people. They're gonna be that 1 out of 10 people that you confront. So if you don't confront anybody, you got 0 people that are going to comply.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Like, if you confront 10 people, you got 1 person that's gonna be that asshole, and he's gonna just blow the smoke in your face now. You know what I mean? And that's the guy you call the police on. But the problem is that people are gonna be pussies and they're not gonna call anybody, and that's the big issue.
Right, and all of a sudden, cruiser shows up, and it's like, now what?
Now there's a big scene, and it's just like it all could have been avoided.
Sure.
For something that isn't, you know what I mean? Because they also were talking about secondhand vaping.
Yeah.
Paul, you right now are contaminating me, and I'm contaminating you with secondhand vape.
Sure.
You know why? Because what comes out of a vape, it doesn't matter what chemicals are in it. What's coming out of my lungs as a byproduct is just what would normally come out of my lungs. It's water vapor. So if I have pneumonia, you're just as likely to get something from that as you would have vape. Right? Like, because, like, anything that I currently have that I'm expelling into the air that is quote-unquote airborne, it's not really airborne, it's the moisture molecules and the particulates clumped onto those that are getting you sick, right? Like, somebody around you sick and they breathing around you. Like, essentially, like, anytime you're breathing near other people, you could get sick.
Sure.
Like, but secondhand vape is the same way. There's no tobacco, there's no smoke. It's all vapor. So, like, it's one of those things. They were trying to claim secondhand vaping. It's like, you don't know what chemicals are in there. Like, shit, you don't know what chemicals or treatments and additives are in gasoline. After they burn it, turns to smoke, comes out the engine, and it drives by that park. Yeah. It probably gets, I bet you...
Well, you could say the same thing about a fire retarding, protection on clothing for kids, It's like, do you really know what's in it?
Yeah, do you know what's in it?
Harmful?
Is it something that is it like mercury? Can it soak through your skin and poison you?
It's anything that we purchase or consume or, make.
We're almost at the first half hour, Paulie. Almost, or 24 minutes. But yeah, no, I mean, I hear you. And that, so we get to touch on two different issues here. We get to touch on the play-by-play of the annual council meeting. We get to touch on some non-smoking in the parks. And then to move on, though, with this whole, with this agenda. And if you guys have any questions at home, we're doing this for your benefit, breaking it down. If you have questions like, hey, man, I watched that video. I have a question about this. I have a question about that. Why just 4 times throughout the video Linda Witt shoot Kevin Doherty barbs? I caught 2 out of my eye, and I watched the video as I was rendering it. And there was like 3 or 4 or 5 barbs, like just staring right at me. Not the camera. The camera was a little to my right. It was, you know what I mean? Those little misdirections. You can, and that's the beauty of the 360. Like, you can read everybody's personal expression if you're focusing on it. So you want to go back through, it's a record, right? You want to go back through and do a play-by-play. You want to see what they're thinking. You can read their mannerisms. I love this. This is awesome. Like, this is sports to me, right? Like, but it's a sport that matters, right? Because, like, if the Bills win the Super Bowl, like, are your children affected by it?
No, they'd be more affected if we lost.
No, but if they play in the Super Bowl, you know what I mean?
No,
Like, if
they're
anything,
not indirectly affected by it.
Right. This is changing lives before us. This is perfecting assholes from changing people's lives at a drastic extreme to try to win votes. This is preventing people from getting their own personal agendas done. This is to try to raise a better city for our families, and that's like the game I play. Like, I want to try to stay neutral on a lot of things. I want to try to get through a lot of ideals that I think are better for the city, and not, like, you know what I mean? Like, is that me getting through my own personal agenda? Like, well, I mean, to an extent, yeah, but I mean, anything is like that, right? Like, but if somebody else comes in with a completely, like, no, I'm just here for personal gain, like,
right.
Fuck you, this is gonna destroy you, like, and that's it. Like, this is, that's what all this transparency is about, man. It's like who you're voting for. Like, you want to vote for the guy who's himself, or you want to vote for the guy because you believe in his opinions and his, you know what I mean? And that's why I love this too, because of all that, you know what I mean? And it's me playing the game. You know what I mean? It's every single one of us playing the game. You play the game by voting. Every person who casts a vote is throwing a football. You know what I mean? That's yardage. That's all that stuff. That's all the statistics thrown right down the middle, and that's the game. And the game affects real lives, and that's why it's important to play this game rather than following some other game that doesn't do anything. You know how many people don't vote, but you know how many people, more people watch football and other sports? It's a no-brainer.
But everybody pays taxes, so, you know.
Nobody's paying attention. But they all want to bitch, but they don't vote.
Right.
So, and then communications from the mayor. The mayor goes into this agenda and does the State of the City address. And, I'm not really going to critique the mayor's speech. If you want to watch it, you can watch it. It's on the channel. Like every year, it's a speech. This year was probably less winded than mayoral years. And then we adjourn the meeting. So, I'm missing the special committee meetings. Huh, that's weird. So anyways, we held a special meeting the next week, which was to vote for the council president. Nate Smith had to return to town because literally nothing would have happened without a council president. Like, only the mayor can call together, like, a special meeting. You know what I mean? So the mayor has to call a special meeting together because we're not going to get any business done.
So something big happened.
For, like, if we waited till the next council meeting, which would have been... The next council meeting is this week. And so by the time we voted on a council president, then, you know what I mean? Then all of a sudden you wouldn't have any committee meetings. You would have had one more council meeting. And without the committee meetings, nothing gets done to then be referred to the council. So literally we would have been in February before we were going to start talking anything. We would have lost one whole month of this year for business for the city.
Just to play a little partisanship politics. You know?
Bullshit, yes. Over bullshit. So the mayor called a special meeting. Because it's like, listen, there's a Band-Aid here. We got to tear it off. Like, it's going to be Paulie. Like, that we knew it was going to be Paulie. Like, that was how it was going to happen. Like, that was it. We go there. There's a nomination on the floor. Paul Gonzalez, blah, blah, blah. Like, all in favor, raise your hands. All opposed. Which I don't think there should have been an opposing vote. Like, all in favor. Like, you don't, like, when you go to the polls, do you cast, like, a no vote?
Yeah.
Like, you don't, like, you check the guy you're voting for. You don't check, like, X's on, like, people you don't vote for. Like, you got a no vote. Like, you know. But I don't know, he ran the meeting because it was a special meeting called by him and there was no council president. So then, then hands raised for Linda. It was Paul 1, 4-3. And then everybody on the 3 side, it was funny. Like, they all, like, one of them, Dave Anastasia, made a comment like, took me longer to drive here. Like, well, like, we knew how this was going to go down. Like, it was clearly talked about before the meeting. You know what I mean? Like, you guys, all the Democrats knew they were going to vote for Linda. And the 2 Republicans that were at the meeting knew we were going to vote for Paul, who's also a Democrat. And, you know what I mean? Like, most Republican Democrat I ever met. You know what I mean? Like, so, but it's one of those things. Like, we all knew going into this, like, it was going to be a tie. Like, one of you guys could have jumped ship and just been like, that's why we left the opportunity for Johnny. Like, because, you know what I mean? Like, I know I'm going to lose council presidentship. I know, I know, and like for nominating Linda, like you knew it was just still going to be the same votes. It was going to be 3-3 until Nate got back, and it was going to be 4-3. Like, it was just drag on the inevitable. I guess, like, hey, let's see if we can do it. Let's see what happens. Let's see if the system works. And you know what I mean? Everybody was afraid that they were going to pull some kind of, like, partisanship. Like, the mayor had the police department serve everybody the special notices. Yeah, they had to be hand-delivered under this council rule. And, like, we all got the email. We all showed up. But, like, you knew it was, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't want somebody to pull something. So it's like, listen, like, all 7 of us knew we had to be there. But the police department handed it to us anyways, just to make sure. People were there, so they couldn't cry that they weren't, invited
or informed of.
Uninformed, yeah, right. And it was just a bullshit game. You know what I mean?
It's just a weird way to start off a new year. You know, I mean, I understand you want to
have
your person calling the shots, especially when it comes to dictating how the meetings go and everything. But
right. Point of order goes to the president of a committee, who's appointed by the council president, or if it's in the committee of the whole. It is the council president, or if it's at the common council itself. If you call a point of order under Robert's Rules of Order, it directs everything right back to the council president to take order of the meeting if it's off agenda. So, and it, like, there is some power to the common council president, but still at the same time, like, man, we're going into this and like, after those meetings, like it's gonna be this way. It's gonna be 4-3, like, all year long. I have a feeling it's going to be 4-3 all year long.
What happens if there's a tie? Does the mayor have a vote?
There's no tie.
No. Okay.
No. The tie reverts until all the council members are present.
Okay.
There wouldn't be a tie. There's 7 of us.
Oh, there's 7. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The only reason that the one meeting got pushed was Nate wasn't there.
Right.
Nate wasn't there. So that was... But, so... We voted, and then they're just like, Dave just goes, it took longer to drive here. Like, you knew that. You knew that it took longer to drive here. Like... One of you guys could have just voted for Paul and that would have been it. Like, you already knew. Like, it drew me nuts. Like, you guys caused this. And I know Dave is new, but he's not new. You know what I mean? Like, sure. Dave Anastasia's coming back in Ward 7, and he's like, dude, we could do a whole podcast just on the play-by-play of a different alderman. You know what I mean? Like, each and every one of their dynamics. Like, if you don't watch the council meetings like that, I can give you a rundown on each and every one of them. Like, who they are, how they'll vote on certain issues, like... You know what I mean? What is more of a driving factor to a vote of theirs? You know what I mean? Like, that's...
Yeah, that'd be kind of good.
I'm almost dangerous. You know what I mean? Like...
It's not like you're going to reveal, embarrassing things as much as just, the dynamics of how they, conduct themselves in the council meeting.
No, and that's... I mean, that's how John
took insight because, like I said,
that's how John took over in the first place, though. I mean, like, right now, there was just kind of like this vote of no confidence for Johnny, It was more or less like his last year's political thing, and that's, like, you don't know where his loyalties lie, and, you don't know, you watch his, he did this thing where he was just kind of evolving as a human. You don't know, when somebody's evolving and changing, you can't, like... it's one of those things, like, and you could see that he was stressed out a lot, and, like, dealing with him personally, you can see he was stressed out a lot. And then that's the same way that John took council presidentship from Paul originally. Paul was going through a divorce. Like, I mean, these are personal shit that happens. You know what I mean? He was going through a divorce, and like a lot of the council was like, "Listen, he's a little hot-headed recently, and blah blah blah." And so be it. He had to be. You know what I mean? If your missus was leaving you, you'd be a little like testy around shit too. You know what I mean? You're trying to construct like divorce decrees, and you're trying to get the legal separation paperwork going. Now I gotta pay for goddamn lawyers. You gotta, you know what I mean? Who gets the kids? What days? You know what I mean? Like that, things like that. You just, you know what I mean? Like. And
on top of all that, try to conduct yourself
and run and steer the ship.
And try to work with 6 other people plus a mayor plus a bunch of people.
Department heads and schedule meetings. It's tough, and that's you know what I mean. That's how John played it to everybody else. You know what I mean? Because like retrospect, I've heard Paul call that move bullshit. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like now John's calling bullshit. Like I don't know, man.
Guess we'll find out.
That's what it is. Like. And it's people in their games, man. People love to play games, and this is a real game. This is a game that matters to people's lives. So, and then to go into the committee meeting with 35 minutes in our video, and I'm smoking these beers, Paulie. To get into this, because me and Paulie are gonna watch The Mandalorian, which we all recommend to the rest of you if you didn't notice the shirt. We're gonna watch episode 4 of The Mandalorian.
I think so.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're gonna watch at least one episode tonight. Me and Paulie catch together and we watch those and drink a few brewskis and make the kids watch it until I have to drag them up to bed and kicking and screaming. So, but recommend it. Disney Plus. Not our sponsor of the show, but
you can be.
You can be. It could be. Yeah, it could be.
That would be great.
Dude, I'm still trying to get FarmersOnly.com to support the show because I would love to sing their theme and then have like a little piece of paper from them be like, yeah, they're our sponsor. I am allowed to sing the FarmersOnly.com theme and not have like some kind of copyright infringement. That's why we have to mute our phones and our watches and our tablets. Anything else that's in the room, we have to mute it all because if it makes some freaking noise, if it makes some like ringtone, they'll ding you and they get you. Sucks. It's not like that. It's unbeknownst to popular belief, it doesn't have to be it's up to 3 seconds of a song. Like no, that's all bullshit. I mean, like clearly, like you don't own a note though too. It's a very gray area. Like you can't be like, oh, that note started this song. Like no, like you not. Yeah, there's other songs that started with that note too.
Copyright lawyers.
Yeah, goddamn lawyers. So the committee of the whole was called this past week. And we did the roll call, the unfinished business. There was none because clearly we're going to a new year. So, any of you don't know, going into a new year, so our financial calendar is based from July 1st to June 30th. I believe that's how it is, right? June is month 6. So to be done with 6 months to start the next 6-month cycle. Yeah, so we are, I believe we're at July 1st. Is our beginning of our calendar year for our financials. But legislatively, our financial year legislatively, our year starts January 1 to December 31st. It is a typical calendar year. So what happens is any proposed legislation in New York State or anything that's unfinished dies at the end of the year. Technically, my term dies at the end of each year, and it's born again in a new term because my term spans multiple years.
Okay.
But what happens is a piece of legislation, a discussion item, things like that. Now we're human, like it's almost like a computeristic system. How you think of these legalese of it all.
Sure.
So like obviously I'm an entity that survives year to year, right? So I can pull out of my data banks, a discussion item that we brought up, and so I will re-bring it up, and I have to re-bring it up and reinstitute it. It's almost like we format everything at the end of each year, and so now I have to bring forward legislation that I had, or sometimes we'll suspend indefinitely, knowing with notes that hey, like we're going to bring this back up at the beginning of the next year because we didn't have enough time to discuss it before it would die on the 31st day of the year.
So it'd be a good way for people if they said, hey, I haven't heard anything about the landlord tenants renting apartments.
No, the day-to-day stuff. I'm talking about legislatively.
Right, like I said, like anything that was still in the works. it.
If the landlord law, I think I had to reintroduce the landlord law.
Actually reintroduce it in the new
I had to reintroduce it. We started it in September. It took up until January, then it would have died. So I had to reintroduce it into January of the following year when it died in December, to finish talking about it. And then it got I believe it got passed in like January, February. We wanted to pass it relatively quickly because we already talked about it. We did all the talking, right? So it took effect, and we knew we were very close to passing it, but we also wanted to. We also didn't want it to just, because some things will drag on forever. People can bloviate and drag topics on, and we didn't want it to drag on forever either, especially because budget season was coming up. And once budget season hits, like, you don't really want to talk about other issues. You just focus on the budget, because it's a pretty integral part of our city. That's one of the biggest things the Common Council does. And so, like, a lot of new legislation will wait until after budget season is over, which is about a month long. You're talking like late, like mid-February or mid-March to mid-April, and then we have to pass it by then in order for it to take effect and be published and all that other stuff by the beginning of May, so that it can be published for June, and then all the tax rates can be set. So there's a lot of different things that happen.
Okay, so if there's people out there watching this, if they have a question, it'd be a good time to ask you, because something might have died, and unless
and
they
then
almost
say,
hey, what's up with
almost everything that we killed has already been scheduled to be reintroduced.
Okay, so
which I don't think there was much. I think there's the plumbing law that I brought up. I mean, mostly legislation that I had in my utility belt that I was like already had drafted the legalese on it, and I mean, and that's a lot of like above and beyond. Like most guys on the Common Council, they'll just say, hey, listen, like, I want this to happen. We'll talk about it, and like, hey, city attorney, make it happen, and that's it. Like, I'm the guy, like, with the landlord law, I spent like countless days in the city attorney's office writing that. Like, I'd sit home and write it while, you know what I mean, and then I would go and meet with him for meetings, and then I would take advice and notes and things like that. He would go off and do a couple things. I'm sure he's put a couple hours into it, you know what I mean, here and there. And then I'd come home and I would make notes and all this other stuff, put hours into it, and then we'd reconvene. And so it took a lot of months before I even brought it forward. I mean, a lot of people aren't putting that much, into the research and the laws, the actual laws, and writing it. Like, you know what I mean? They just kind of put the onus on the council president not the council president, the city attorney to actually write the law. So, but I wanted to make sure that I knew the baby that I was creating. Sure. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to know right down to the hair follicles.
That's good. I appreciate it.
So this meeting was pretty easy, though. You know what I mean? Like, we did it, and Paul and the mayor had collaborated on just doing, because we didn't have anything to talk about, so quick notice, one whole day. They collaborated, like, hey, like, the mayor already had the idea that he wanted to put presentations together for the department heads to give presentations to the new alderman, which would have been Dave Anastasia, who's not new, but he's new, like, just a refresher. Any of us who had any questions or things like that to listen and observe, and this one was a long one. I mean, this was like 2 hours or so, 2.5 hours, hour and a half, somewhere there. It was a pretty lengthy council meeting, and then they kind of gave everybody a rough, you know what I mean, like, what's being done. And the only thing, like, notably that I noticed is towards the end of the meeting, everybody kind of, towards the end of every long meeting, you'll notice that everybody will get kind of tired, anxious, and they'll get grumpy, and, you know what I mean, they might spout out something that, you know what I mean, like, just, and then, towards the end, when we start talking about, like, DPW was last, and Dave Anastasia talked about the airport. And I remember when I first took council president, when I first took on the council, I saw the airport in the budget, and I was like, we have an airport? Like, what does that do? Like, you know what I mean? You start asking questions, all these other things, and like, Dave isn't new to that. And actually, like, when John first took council, I remember talking with him, like, yeah, man, I mean, there's a lot of people who support the airport. There's a lot of people that think it's a waste of money. And at a certain point, like, you got to weigh your options. And so it was kind of a difficult talk, you know what I mean? Like what? Because I learned, like, you're not going to get rid of the airport, because who's going to buy it? Like, who the hell is going to buy it? You know what I mean? Like, what the hell is going on? I'm in a group message. siblings. Like, who's going to buy it? It's got a capped landfill on it. We pay $10,000 a year to monitor it. The airport makes money to offset most costs, and we probably lose about $110,000 a year. So you think 10,000's monitoring for a capped landfill that's up there, and the rest of it's the airport. So we only lose $100,000 a year, and that's after we take, like, I think the county gives us like $12,000 a year, some crazy small number, and we still have to pay Ishiway school taxes.
Really?
Yeah, we don't pay county taxes. We don't pay Ishiway taxes. We have a pilot. We still pay, like, their school taxes. It's bullshit stuff. Like, but at the same time, like, he brought it up and he was like, oh, we still in the red on that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we're losing money on it, right? But to the counter argument, though, like, $110,000 seems like a lot of money to you and me, right? Like, that's a lot of money.
Sure.
But we're talking a $17 million budget.
Right.
Like, you know how much the police and fire department cost us? How much money do you think they bring in?
For their budget?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, because nothing on the city level is revenue generating.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
that's it. Like, how much money does it bring in? Like, the rec center brings in money, but still loses us like $1 million a year.
Sure. I mean, maybe your meters probably bring in like 20, 30,000 maybe. You don't even do meters anymore.
No, we have tickets.
Yeah.
We bring in like $30,000 in tickets a year.
Yeah.
Like, it covers the cost of the ticket guy.
Yeah.
No, the ticket guy is like $30,000 a year. I think we bring in 60. So we, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think the rec center loses $1 million, but I know that the police and fire department, the fire department's more, but the police department costs us $2.5 million a year, $3 million a year, where the fire department is like $3 to $4 million a year. So we've got like $7 million just in police and fire.
Okay.
I'm glad to pay for those services.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean,
Right, that's it. Like, it's not, yeah. But then you start getting down to, like, you know what I mean, fine tuning your axe. You know what I mean? You're grinding your axe down. Like, how fine are we making this?
Yeah.
Where's the line between what a government should cover? Right? Like, we have rec centers, we have parks, we have all these other things that cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And I want to say, like, compared to the airport is a $110,000 loss for some people to have an airport and blah, 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 and commerce. And it helps a lot of the business heads, like a lot of major businesses in Olean deal with that airport. And they're not going to, you know what I mean? Why would you take one of their amenities away? They're providing jobs, right? For $110,000 a year when clearly, like, the youth and rec department loses us like $300,000 a year.
Sure.
Right? But everybody has children. Not everybody has an airplane. But it's like the percentage. You know what I mean? Like,
you know, you have added value by, supplying, good, healthy places for kids to
Now-
hang out and stuff like that. But,
and that's the discussion if that was the only topic.
right.
The airport also, for every, let's say we put $1 million in to the airport for a renovation, because tarmacs aren't easy to maintain.
Sure.
The FAA, the Federal Aviation Agency or Administration, they cover 95% or 90% of our match.
Sure.
So if we have $1 million, they're covering 900,000 of it. So yeah, and the state covers 5% of anything that the FAA will match. So they're covering 50,000. So the city only has to cover 5%. So we put $50,000 into $1 million project. We're getting, $950,000 towards the project, not paid for by us.
Sure.
So the nice part about that is, like, you think, oh great, yeah, we just put $1 million in an airport that loses us money. Yeah. And by signing up for that, you're on the hook for 20 years. Like, oh shit, let's pull the plug now, right? No, because you know why? The reason why we can bond and borrow money and get grants, and there's a bunch of other different financial avenues is because the airport is our collateral. It's our biggest piece of collateral. The airport's worth $20 million. You know what I mean? Every $1 million that we put into it, a bank looks at it and says, you put $50,000 in, you got $1 million asset. You know what I mean? To them, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So we keep it maintained as an airport for a small private airport for 20 years. Like, that's a drop in the bucket compared to the leverage. Like, because otherwise we could be paying, you know what I mean? Maybe we're paying like 1.5% on interest, we could be paying like 20% on interest. You know what I mean? All because somebody wanted to kibosh this. But they don't let... Nobody ever... Like, I've said this at 3 different council meetings, and no one's picking up on it. Like, I get Dave just got back here, but it was almost like it was scripted. Like, it was almost like it was scripted, you know what I mean? Like, it just, you know... And I told him, and if he doesn't bring it up again, like, you know what I mean? But if I have to... I have a feeling, and most of the time this happens, I have to, like, keep, like, regurgitating the same shit at council meetings because they're just trying to drive a point home, hoping the newspaper picks up on it and misses what I say. Sure. So that they can just indoctrinate more people with bullshit.
Sure, and just get them all fired up. Oh, we are wasting all this money, but
you're not.
They don't see that it's really not costing that much, and you know it does provide a service for the vital companies.
You have a gold bar, and you have to pay $10 a year on it, but the gold bar is worth $1 million. Yeah. You don't throw the gold bar away because you lose $10 on it. You know what I mean? You don't sell it either because when you go to refinance your house and stuff, hey, shit, I got a gold bar. It's easier for me to hold on to this gold bar and just keep doing refinancing and other stuff like that I'm trying to do over here when I've got this thing over here. It doesn't take me that much. You know what I mean? And that's really what it came down to. We're at the 50-minute mark, Paul, so I don't know if you want to call it.
Yeah.
All right, so they did the facility needs report, and there's a few things that we need, and you can watch the meeting into that. We can talk on that next time if I get comments about it. I don't know if anybody's still in there. Are you in there? And then approval of committee reports, I believe we had none because nothing really got approved, or that's Robert's rules. If you don't just forward something onto a different committee or forward up the ranks or forward to the next meeting, then there's no committee report, so you don't have to prove anything. And then the notice for adjournment, and then we adjourned our meeting. So that was, that's where we were on that one. So, and then I think the only thing you want to touch on, since we have 10 minutes, 9 minutes left on the dot, you want to touch base on what's going on with the bridge in front.
Yeah, I just heard the other day another truck hit the bridge over Main Street.
Casella. I'm a huge hater of Casella. I hate Casella. I hate them. They're just, every time I turn around, like, they're throwing garbage in constituents' lawns and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan.
It just seems like every year there's at least 2 or 3 times people hit the thing. Obviously there's a sign saying, to a certain level, you cannot go underneath. Is there anything that the city could ever get imaginative with? I know I've seen some...
So we have
on TV where, like if you hit this bar, you're going to hit the bridge or something like that. Because this just seems like somebody hits it, and then that whole entire street is shut down until they can friggin' pull the thing out.
So I've told enough people this, so I thought it was actually public knowledge. And every time I see it on the only in traffic sites and the safety and whatever, the only politics, all of those ones, it just to come straight out. Like I'm not like the most recent one was Casella. I don't not like Casella. But I try to not like, I try to like Casella, but every time I turn around, I'm getting a call about them, like, getting confrontational with constituents. Like, hey man, you forgot my recycling. Like, fuck you. Like, you shouldn't say fuck you to one of my constituents. Like one old guy was like, listen, you forgot my recycling. Your sticker's not on the bag. And he's like, walks out and he's like, the sticker's right here. Like, he goes, oh, we'll come back and get it. And he's like, he grabs the bag, and the guy took a picture of his front lawn. It was scattered in recycling. You know what I mean? And the guy just was like, oh, this isn't recycling. Dumped it on the yard. This is trash without a sticker. Dumped it on the guy's yard. And took the trash bag and threw it in the thing. And the guy called and complained. And the lady was like, our guys wouldn't do that. Our guys wouldn't do that. And I called me. And I called. You know what I mean? Like, most of the people they're hiring are like ex-convicts, and they're not even from this area. Like, you know what I mean? They get like from like some staffing place. You know what I mean? Like, that hires convicted felons. Like, it was one of those things that like just drives me bonkers. But so every time I try to like the Casella people, they always do something dumb. And then you got them here for 10 years, 20 years, 15 years. They bought SDS. So Casella is not a local company. They're from Vermont or something. So Casella bought a local company and then like transplanted most of the people, most of the higher ups here, and then either like key players, and then wiped out the local market except for these degenerate felon folk that can't get a job anywhere else. So, but regardless, they hit it next, right? They've been here long enough, and they hit it. Like, what, your first day on the job, like you hit the goddamn thing. Like, that's a regular route for them. They should. So. I've said this about 100 times though. They have gotten. We've for the most part we have a plan in place, and it takes a while because the railroad is where that bridge is.
They actually own the actual bridge.
Railroad is one of the hardest. It's like trying to deal with the DEC. Like they're one of the hardest. Like if we write a report to the DEC, it takes us like 8 months to get it back. It could be like, hey, we're currently shitting in the river. What should we do? Like they'll wait 8 months and then be like, oh, you waited 8 months before you did anything. Like because you said we can't do anything unless you tell us. Like railroad department is like almost as bad. They have to like send it to their board, their local regional board. Their regional board has to review it, then send it to like the set, you know, like the district board. The district board then sends it to the state. The state has to send the approval down. It has to be then reviewed and blah 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 blah. And we pretty much we worked with the local guy, and he came up with a plan with our DPW director, and they're going to raise the bridge.
Okay.
They're going to get rid of the bridge at like the one on Queen going to Bishop.
Yeah.
They're getting rid of that.
Oh, there.
Because they had to re-support it and all this other stuff. They were like, well, how about you just break it down to just a footpath? So they're making like one of those little tunnels for people to walk, like a 2-person walking, like sidewalk path, like so people can cross under there, pedestrian style.
Because isn't there a trail that kind of
There's
runs?
a sunken in road.
Okay.
So they're just going to fill all that in and re-support it. It's going to be way cheaper. Okay. So they can use that additional funding they have to raise the bridge by Front Street.
Okay.
Still would only raise it by 2 or 3 inches.
Okay.
Or 4 inches or something that's not significant enough for a truck. But our DPW department is working on engineering a lowering the bridge on our side, because our side's right now, what is it, like just street level, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So they're going to be bringing it down like a foot or so, easily. 2 feet, something like that. So it's going to be, you're actually probably, by the time this is all said and done, you'll be able to get tractor trailers under there.
Really? Yeah, that'd be great for a lot of the businesses down there, you know, in the hospital.
Yeah, they're gonna pitch the road way back so that you can get people in and up, and they're gonna work on the drainage and all that stuff to make sure that any water that's down there gets taken care of, and so it's not just you're driving down 3 feet into it. You know what I mean?
Sure. So is there kind of a ballpark, or you're still waiting on certain...
It's waiting on, we got to wait for them to raise the bridge so that we can lower this.
So you can lower the street.
We lower the street, right.
Well, cool.
So, but that's something that's being talked about, and it's been kicked up the ladder, and I'm pretty sure it's on the final steps. If it's not happening this year, it's happening next. Okay. You know what I mean? It's going to be, like, by 2022, I can't foresee that thing not being done. I mean, like, obviously, we got to break down ground with the city. But I think we're going to be planning on using CHIPS money, which is like state money that we get every year for roads. Like we pick a bigger project to do every year. Like we always mill and pave certain roads like every year on a, you know what I mean, on a rotational basis. But then we go to the other part, and you know what I mean. Like then we have like a slightly bigger project, and then we have all these little streets. You know what I mean? Like so it's kind of divvied up nicely. Everything is orchestrated very well. It's just like when you're watching Facebook, everything looks like it's chaos. Like the city's falling apart. Like the belt has fallen off the city. Its pants are falling around.
They just did this road 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. You know,
yeah, it's also one of the busiest streets in the city.
Right? Yeah, I know. Yeah. And then you look at Facebook, and you're like, oh my god, the belt has ripped off the city, and its pants are around its ankles, and it's shitting everywhere, and you're just like, what the fuck? And like, it's not like that. It's not. It's like it's actually very well orchestrated. It's called long-term planning, and like the average Joe. The average Joe likes to paint their house, right? Like, they like to have their house painted because they're like, wow, look, brand new. My house is brand new. Like, yeah, but it's still an old house with a fresh coat of paint. But there's something instantly gratifying about painting a room or painting a house, right? Like, it's just, as soon as you paint it, it's done, right? Like, it's done. Yeah. You paint it like, oh, my God, this room looks brand new, like nothing ever happened. And you're like, no, it's not like that. It's... You know what I mean? Like, nobody sees that much satisfaction out of, like, hey, this guy came in, he tore everything off the walls, he's got all the drywall up and all the, you know what I mean? Like, all the walls are open now, and he finished all the electrical. And finishing the electrical takes quite a bit of time. Then you finish the plumbing in another section, it takes a bit of time. You know what I mean? The guy hangs the drywall in a day, and he muds it, and then all of a sudden, once the mud process started, well, it just took forever. It took forever. Like, people don't see that portion of it. Sure. You know what I mean?
And they don't know, technically, you say you finish one street, you're already somewhere down the road. You know how long it's going to last you, and so you're already almost tentatively planning the next
70. Yeah, because you're 17 streets behind because you got, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? How many? There's 400 streets in the city. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do it one. You can't if you do one a year. That takes 400 years. Yeah. The streets don't last 400 years. You know what I mean? Like, you got to pick so many streets a year, and you know what I mean. Some streets are going to just miss their like expected life deadline, but it's just how it is. It has to happen that way because of the finances. But then some streets are shorter, and they're, hey, we can squeeze this one in this budget this year, and you know what I mean. Sometimes they take tweaking along the way, and it's just a lot of people don't get it, man. It's stressful, and you know what I mean. Like, had they watched like this is the first. We're coming up on a year. I want to say when the budget season starts, it'll have been 1 year because there's a couple council meetings before the budget that I started streaming the meetings, and you know I've been filming the meetings, and so like even after I work out my quirks, all the quirks with it and stuff, and like when you start looking at the Facebook page or the YouTube channel, you'll see like we've got consistently 1 year worth of like information. So if you watch the council meetings every week, you'll know like what's going on, what we deal with, what's happening uptown, and it's not being forgotten about. Like, oh, you just don't give a shit. But you know what people are also going to do? People are also going to be like, not watch it and be like, do the same thing. Or they will watch it and they'll just claim ignorance. You know what I mean? Because they just want to bitch about something. Sure. And you're not going to be able to stop that. You're not going to be able to stop people bitching about stuff. Sorry.
Yeah, man. It's our first one. I think we made it.
Yeah, we made it. In just, an hour and 17 seconds. All right, Paulie. Paul the Good Husband. Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin. Rock on. Don't forget, buy them cheap beers over at, or your deliciously expensive beers. They have it all down at Allegheny Beverage. And actually, that's what we should do. Every week we should pick a new sponsor, and they don't have to know we're the sponsor. We'll just pick a new sponsor on local businesses, promote the local economy, support local businesses, and we'll see you guys next time. Hopefully same time, same bat channel. Maybe not. Do you want to say something?
Nope. Thanks for having me, man.